So we have a really exciting lineup. I'm also biased because I know a couple of these speakers personally and professionally, and they're all amazing human beings. I think they're all on social media, so it's a way to stay connected with them after this morning. But we're going to have Erica introduce our first speaker.
Hi all, good morning. Our first speaker that we'll be hearing from today is Lea Austen. She is a boutique photographer. She specializes in children, senior, and family photography. She's a creator and an artist. She loves to get to know her clients and really interact with them on a personal scale to make sure that she gets the best results for them. So Lea, whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all here today. So wow, when I started to sit down and get quiet about this idea of stress, the first thing that came to me is the quote I'm just going to share right now, which lives in my office. And it goes like this: when words become unclear, I shall focus on photographs. When images become inadequate, I shall be content with silence. And that's a quote by Ansel Adams. And, you know, it really never really thought about it in terms of stress. But as I sort of held that quote, it really did sort of morph that way in my heart and in my mind. The way I look at stress for my life and for me personally, I was born with a lung condition. I have very severe asthma, and stress is a big part of that. And I've had to make friends with stress since I was little. And I know that sounds really weird, but when we start to take pieces of our lives, right, and rather than fight with it, just sort of like let it be, it's incredible what amazing things can happen from that, and when you surrender, right, where that goes in your life. When I was younger, in college in New York City, I was an actress and model. I was on the other side of the lens, always felt a little bit of the stress with that and rejection. And my mom and dad built a house on the Isle of Palms. And so when I needed to de-stress, I would get on the plane, I would fly to Charleston, I would grab my camera, and I would get lost downtown. I mean, truly lost, not just on a map, but lost in my soul, lost in that lens, in the, you know, not what Charleston looks like today, but what Charleston was like back in the 80s, you know, that romantic decay. And because there was no digital photography either, it was that anticipation, right, of coming home and seeing what that cultivated, right, from and unexpected ways. So that stress that brought me here took me to this beautiful place, and then I had this end result of something that was really wonderful. And just that idea of just letting yourself, when you can realize, right, that we're in this place, like, oh my gosh, I've been looking at social media too long, or I need to step away from my desk because we're all working from home now, right? To have that creative outlet, whatever it is, picking up your paints, picking up your camera, picking up your crayons, you know, it doesn't matter, going outside, taking a big deep breath in. And as my life sort of morphed and changed again, I had these young kids, and the stress of working and raising a family, bingo, that camera was back in my hands again. And I was, you know, making these moments with them. And then it brought me back to my childhood, because that's exactly what my family did when we were growing up. So this photography theme was really, unbeknownst to me, part of my life from the get-go. And it was truly a big part of how I de-stressed. I'm also a yogi, and I teach yoga, so practicing yoga and mindfulness is also a great big part of how we can help ourselves, you know, to de-stress. But yeah, so for me, taking that camera, being able to appreciate other people and their circumstances and where they are, and try to meet them where they are, right? So if I can cultivate or give somebody a little bit of joy or make them be excited about a change, right, to take them away from the norm and to explore just this idea of celebration, right? And it just all the other stuff, right, that's always going to be there starts to sort of fade into the background. And even if it just fades for a little while, right, that is so powerful and it could be so meaningful. So I'll leave you with this last quote because I'm super, that's what I do. The camera is an instrument that teaches people how to see without a camera. And that was a quote by Dorothea Lange. So thank you all. Go find your little creative selves out there and have a great day.
Okay, that was great. Thank you so much, Leah. We're gonna move on to our next speaker now. His name is Jai Jones. He is the creative director of 12 South. Which is an Apple-focused accessory company. You may also know him from his well-known blog and Instagram at Jai Eats, which focuses on the local food and bev scene. So Jai, feel free to take it away.
There we go. Cool. Good morning, everyone. So I feel like stress is something that we're all familiar with right now and that we all deal with. And as creatives, we are fortunate enough to do what we love for a living. And that desire to create that you have with your day job doesn't really necessarily stop there. You always have this desire to create. And one way that I deal with stress is to really create, but in a way that's completely different than what I do with my career. That all started for me with food, right? After college, I was no longer on the ramen noodle diet, and I was able to really enjoy great food again. And Charleston at that time was going through this period where we were becoming a culinary destination, right? There was incredible things happening within the culinary world here. And going out and discovering new restaurants was a way for me to reconnect with my family. And everything that goes into a restaurant, from the architecture, look at The Ordinary, for example, how the architecture is such a core part of that whole experience, to the writing of a menu and the branding of a restaurant. All these elements come together to create this really unique experience for you as a diner. And that newly discovered passion, along with my passion for photography and storytelling, all melded together to become what is now Jai Eats. And what I love about what I do with that is that I'm able to really tell the stories of a lot of the great people in the food and bev industry here in Charleston, and highlight restaurants that will hopefully become new favorites for people and will be places that they frequent often. And that especially became important during the beginning of the pandemic and the beginning of everything that we're dealing with now. A lot of the friends that I have in the food and beverage industry were thriving. And then all of a sudden, within the matter of a few weeks, they were on Instagram and really wondering if they would be able to continue, if they would be able to keep their doors open. And for me, food at that time, at the beginning of all this, really brought a little bit of comfort, right? Sometimes the highlight of my day was getting a Daps chickpea sandwich or, pickled shrimp from Edmund's Oast. And I wanted to continue to tell those stories at that time and really highlight a lot of the great things that were happening, a lot of the great restaurants that were still open and still doing takeout, and really encouraging people to support local restaurants while they were going through all of this. And that idea of storytelling expanded with my most recent partnership with Black Food Fridays and Red Clay, where we're highlighting a lot of Black-owned restaurants and businesses in Charleston. And for me, seeing people for the first time go out to Ravenel, South Carolina for garlic crabs to a small family-owned business is huge. You know, even if it's a small impact, it's an impact, and it means a lot to them. So really my way to deal with stress as a creative is to create, but do it in a way that's completely different than your normal. Doing this can allow you to further grow your skill set while pursuing a new passion that may turn into something bigger than you could ever imagine. And there's no better time to do that than right now. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. We are moving rather quickly today, guys, but there will be a Q&A at the end. So if you want to just drop your questions in the chat, we'll be able to get some answers for you then. Okay, moving on, we have Jasmine Mullins. And Jasmine Mullins has love letters since she could begin to write them. She, after working in graphic design, she decided to go back to her roots and create hand lettering using chalk, ink, and paint. So Jasmine, we're excited to hear from you.
Hey guys, I hope you can hear me in my awkward camera angle that I chose to use today, because I wanted to be able to incorporate hand lettering, but still have you see my face a little bit. But yeah, I'm Jasmine Mullins. I have been a hand letterer now for basically my whole life, because I have love letters, but really in the last maybe 5 to 7 years have I really made that part of my focus. And I chose to hand letter a quote here for y'all today to kind of intro our little talk. Stressed, spelled backwards, is desserts. You've probably heard it. But why it kind of came to my mind partially was because I thought about, although the quote's kind of funny, but seriously, I think about when we fill up on emotional junk food, then we don't have room for the good stuff, the healthy stuff that we need for our mind and heart and soul. And so I chose this quote in a funny way, but also because I wanted y'all to see just some of my process. And we're actually gonna have an exercise today that we're gonna get to do together. If y'all have paper and pencil handy, or pen, or whatever utensil you might be working with, you can join along in the exercise. But I really started hand lettering in pursuit of peace. And so I thought it was appropriate that we talk about it today, because I did do some graphic design for quite a while. I wasn't necessarily trained in it. I went to College of Charleston for communication, but I didn't have any formal training in graphic design. Ended up doing that for years, enjoyed it, but really wanted to get into something more tangible. Wanted to get back to art that I could touch and feel and enjoy. And that's really where hand lettering came in place. Honestly, most of it was just me watching people on Instagram, watching their process, watching what they did, and following along and copying them. That's how I learned. And I really found it, you know, if you've ever watched someone's hand lettering videos, you might find that kind of de-stresses you. I don't know, a lot of people find that very satisfying, and I did too. So I began hand lettering quotes, making cards for people, making prints, and started a business called Sight to Behold based on I found, especially in our digital age right now, where we're on Zoom, where we're texting a lot, we're not face to face. When you receive a hand lettered card, when you receive something handwritten, doesn't it just bless your soul, right? Like, it's just something special when you see that in the mail. And so I was just going to show you a few ways that I sketched some things that just blessed my heart and brought peace to my soul, whether it was something I did create digitally on my iPad, or something, you know, this is just like very sketchy, something that I ended up writing on a sidewalk in my neighborhood during quarantine, actually, or something I brush lettered. So those are the kind of things that de-stress me. But one exercise I thought that might everybody might be able to participate in is gratitude journaling. And where you might think about gratitude journaling being writing out your thoughts, and maybe that works for you. For me, hand lettering is the way I like to gratitude journal. So I'd actually like y'all to use the chat function for this and help me think of some words. And when I think about gratitude, I mean, if you look up studies on gratitude journaling, it's proven to lower your stress levels. It's proven to make you a more joyful and peaceful person. It's been proven to show that you sleep better when you gratitude journal. So I would love some words that you think of, and we're going to mix between different types of letters, between serif, sans serif, and script. And if you have some prompts that you want to give me, I'm going to start with my daughter actually wanted a new car, and she had this specific car in her mind for a long time that a friend of ours had, a Toyota Solara convertible. And we actually, through an unusual set of circumstances, had that car come into our possession. And her other car broke down just days after we bought the Solara. So I'm gonna write the word Solara, and I see y'all writing lots of other words. I'm gonna write this word Solara here in the middle because it's what I'm most thankful for at this moment. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Like if you were doing this as a practice, you could spend 10 or 15 minutes. We have like 1 minute. So this is just a real quick practice that you could do every day. But let's see, I'm seeing community. I mean, how cool is it that y'all have this community of people that you're able to plug into, other creatives? I'm so thankful for people like y'all. Let's see. I see creative, and I love that goes along with community. And I'm going to try to letter these a little bit different, maybe in the way that they just kind of strike me, maybe in a way that's meaningful to me, but maybe wouldn't be meaningful to everybody else. And I think the more specific you get in the gratitude words that you choose, whether it's something that happened to you recently, spontaneous laughter. What a cool thing to be thankful for. Spontaneous laughter. And now hand lettering, the difference between hand lettering and handwriting is you're actually drawing your letters. And so the goal here is to concentrate on each letter form to create something that means more than just if you had written it down. And that's the real difference between hand lettering and handwriting. And I think that focus on each little letter and each word is really what's going to, that mindfulness that goes along with it is really what helps focus you on your heart and your creativity. And I think that's a part of what brings you peace. All right, I'll take one more short word. I see there, love. So I'll write love. And this practice could be done any way you wanted. I just like having these words all on one page for me to look at later as a reminder of all the good in my life and that things happen for you, not just to you. And this kind of reminder, I think, brings peace to my day. So that's it for me. Thank y'all for letting me speak for a little bit.
Okay, great. So finally, our last speaker today is Mimi Striplin. She is a College of Charleston graduate who founded the Tiny Tassel in 2015. And this offers a whole line of handmade jewelry, garments, accessories, and party decor sold all across the country. So Mimi, we're excited to hear from you.
Good morning, everyone. One thing that I want to start with is a quote that I have been forcing myself to read and think about every day. I read it on Instagram a few months ago and it really just resonated with me. It's super short. It just says, create before consuming. And for me, that is such a simple thing that I need to remind myself of every single day, whether it's get up and create 5 minutes for myself before I get on my phone and do 100 other things for hours long in the day. Or some days for me, it's go and create my smoothie or my breakfast before I start working and consuming other people's things into my own life and mind. And for myself, that just helps me to start the day a little de-stressed and to just move forward without, or with a little more clarity. And I think right now there's so much going on in the world that my brain just gets so filled up with all kinds of things. And I find myself like so tense and I don't even realize it. And one of my main ways to de-stress right now is to just stop. And I feel like we're all so like cooped up in our houses and we're trying to find all these things and hobbies and just new things to fill our time. And for me, it's been to just stop and to take a few moments to myself and not do anything. And that means not being on my phone, not talking to anyone else, just having a few moments to myself. And I feel for like my friends with kids right now, and they're going back to school and they all feel the stress of that. And everyone's feeling the stress of jobs or unemployment. And I think that we are so kind of trained in our brains to always be going to the next thing and moving forward to the next job or next school year or whatever it is. And that to take that moment to just stop for a few minutes and be with yourself, it can change your day or change your perspective on life then. And I also find that for me with stress, a lot of times it's just mental and I'm just building stuff up in my head and I'm like, Mimi, why did you even make that super stressful on yourself when it was literally, I don't know, a customer being upset about the tassel color that they chose, which in the grand scope of things, I'm like, it's not important. It's not anything to be stressed about. So I find myself having to step back and just really evaluate it and say, is this real stress or is this like just heightened stress in my brain that we can kind of push away by going for a quick walk or calling a friend and talking to them about something totally unrelated? Because I find for myself also that I used to be really quick to call a friend and want to vent about the issue. But instead, I'm trying to shift that and say, call a friend and talk to them about what I'm grateful for that day or something really cool that just happened, instead of focusing on the stressor itself. Because I don't know, and we can get a show of hands of this, but I feel like I was just taught growing up, when something happens to you, you go and talk about it, which is amazing. But I found for myself, I can sometimes get caught up in continuing to talk about it. And then the stress continues to build inside of you instead of helping me relieve the stress. So I find that just going and even, I don't know, taking 5 minutes to journal and kind of talk to yourself about it, but focus on the positives instead of the stressor that is continuing to stress you out. And some other things with stress for me, I find that I was sort of hiding it because I run a very happy brand and a happy business. And as creatives, if you're doing something joyful and bringing happiness into people's lives through your work, some people kind of think, well, you're happy all the time. How are you stressed? Or how are you not finding joy in your work? But I think that we have to remind ourselves it is 100% okay to be a creative, create beautiful work, create joyful things, but obviously still feel the stress and the realness of life. And for me, those are times that I, again, have to just step back and take a few minutes to myself, go for a walk, go for a bike ride. Just really, the other night, I was so stressed out and I was like, this is so silly. What am I doing? Why don't I just go out for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, enjoy a walk around Charleston? We get to live in such a beautiful place. And I think that is such a simple thing right now that we're all being reminded of, that we can go out and enjoy this time, whether it's socially distanced with a friend or just by yourself. And it causes us to just slow down, which I'm really appreciating right now.
Okay, that's great. Thank y'all. So as I mentioned before, if anybody has any questions, please drop them in the chat and we are happy to kind of get that going.
Yeah, and I can read, I see a few. And thank you to each and every one of you. I didn't know how much I needed to hear from you today, but I'm really pulling a special phrase or quote from each of you, and I'm going to try to be more mindful today and try to practice kind of some of the things that we all preach. So thank you. I remember seeing a question in here for Jai at the beginning that asked you what your favorite restaurant is. I know you get this question a lot.
I do. I don't know. There's not one favorite. That's I can kind of give you some current favorites, because I love so many restaurants in Charleston, and there's such a wide variety of restaurants and bars and all of that. are really in the city, but one that I mentioned earlier is Daps. Love Daps. Chickpea sandwich is incredible. They also do some cereal-inspired breakfast foods like the Cinnamon Toast Crunch Sticky Bun, which is out of this world. It's incredible. That Chubby Fish is fantastic downtown. Jackrabbit Philly out in Park Circle is another favorite of mine. And Ravenel Seafood, the place that I mentioned during my talk, out in Ravenel, South Carolina. Great fried food, great garlic crab and shrimp crab, and garlic shrimp. And they also have a food truck in North Charleston. So I have a lot of favorites, but those are kind of some of my current go-tos.
Now I'm hungry. I also always wonder how you still enjoy your meal after you have to take photos of it. But you find a way. Jasmine, were you always the kid in school who had the beautiful handwriting? And if we don't have good handwriting and we want to attempt to write down some words of gratitude each day, how do we start?
That's a great question, Christy. And yes, I was the one who liked, I had the cute handwriting in school. My earliest memories is making like handwriting sheets for cursive, like for myself, like extra practice when I was in 1st and 2nd grade, just for fun. But at the same time, the nice thing about, and I teach hand lettering classes and I'm passionate about it because I do find the nice thing about it is you are drawing letters. It's not based just on your handwriting. It's based on an ability to draw these letter forms, little bits and pieces. So I know actually a lot of people with not so awesome handwriting that do incredible hand lettering. But that's kind of what's cool about it. It's that practice of slowing down on each little part of a letter form and creating something. And it looks different for everybody, which is really cool too. You get to see personality, just like you would in handwriting. You can tell your mom's handwriting from somebody else's handwriting just by looking at it. Same thing with hand lettering. It still has that creative aspect that's so personal that I love. And it can look like your own. You can make it your own thing, and I adore that.
And we also have, a small group. So if you guys want to just unmute yourself and ask a question for the speaker or put it in the chat, please do. We have a few more minutes and we have all these speakers. And I'm full of questions, but I don't want to do all the talking. Anyone? Well, okay, I'll keep asking questions.
I actually do have a question. My question is for Mimi, and it's, how did you begin creating jewelry and then eventually get the inspiration for this, kind of whole world that you built?
Yeah, I never made jewelry before. I started from a Pinterest tutorial. It's kind of like a challenge from my older sister. I'm the youngest, so my sisters have always been so hard on me. But I remember a few years ago, I bought some tassel earrings and she was like, really, you're going to spend your money on that? You can just make them. And I thought, okay, I guess I'll try. And I was working a full-time job that I didn't love. It was kind of crushing my creative soul inside. And I just started, and it grew from there, where there were tassel earrings and then bracelets. And now it's become this whole line of products and lifestyle goods that it's just meant to spread joy, because I like my things to bring me joy. And I hope that the simplicity of our pieces can bring someone else joy.
It looks like we have a question for Leah. Do you currently teach yoga at any local studios?
Yeah, that's a good question. And no, because of COVID, unfortunately, I really can't do that with a mask on. And I am immunocompromised. I have eosinophilic asthma. So that's a big reason why I started actually practicing yoga, was to learn breathing to help my lungs. But I do, if you follow me, if you just like me on Facebook or Instagram, I post my classes that I teach on Zoom from my yoga studio in my house. I also do privates over Zoom. And once we have a vaccine, I'll be back working Holy Cow, the zoo over in West Ashley, and Gold's Gym on Folly. So, and who knows where else in my future. But again, I've got almost to my 500 hours and practice pranayama and meditation and yoga asana. So just reach out to me. I'm happy to help however I can. And everything I do online is free. It's a service. So believing my mantra, love all, serve all. So that's what I just want to offer up to everybody, you know, in the community right now during COVID. Yeah, but thank you for that. Okay, there's another one. Rich, how can someone develop a creative eye for photography? Awesome question. Love that. Yes. So it is something you can cultivate and learn. You know, there are some really wonderful videos and tutorials out in, you know, online, on the computer that you can learn. This is a really awesome book. It's called The Photographer's Playbook. And I was going to share this in my little talk, but I went over, so I apologize for that. And it's just a bunch of like super cool assignments that you can take yourself on and practice. And then you can go back online and sort of look at what you've done and see. So simple things like understanding rule of thirds, right? You can just watch little quick YouTube videos on how to start working with your camera, moving from one, you know, from that, just the camera setting on it's to doing all the work to slowly managing yourself into that full manual mode. But honestly, it's just taking that camera out there, choosing an idea that you want to practice, and then practice it. And, you know, honestly, when I take clients out one-on-one to do this stuff, I have them laying on the ground. You know, I have them shooting up at the sky. It's not just straight ahead, right? So to get that world vision out just away from this and to look for different angles and to just understand that perspective from different, you know, points of view can be really, really fun. So great question. Just get out there and practice it. Make a, you know, choose one thing and go for it and just come back and see what you did and then move on to the next. So thank you.
I think we've got another question here from Chris E. And I think this is for all of you. So what are some ways that self-employed creative people can avoid burnout? Tips and tricks, give it to us.
I would say create realistic expectations for yourself. Sometimes being self-employed, or a lot of times I'm always thinking about how am I gonna make sure I pay my bills, etc. So then you're working all day and all night. But I think you have to frame it the same way that, or a similar way that you would be at a 9-to-5 job and say, okay, these are my work hours. I'm gonna stick to it. These are my boundaries that I'm setting for myself, or else you can so easily get burnt out by what you love and by doing it for so much time.
I agree with Mimi. I think that was like the big takeaway for that, when you love what you do and you do that for a living. And I think finding time to do other things, right? And to explore other hobbies, or just to find more balance, right? So that, I think that's super important. To just, we're always in that flux of balance, imbalance, right? So we don't ever want anything to get stale. So to be able to sort of step away from something and to come back in is really good. And yeah, so thanks, Mimi.
Jai or Jasmine, you got any answers to that question?
Yeah, for me, I think a big part of my hand lettering journey was that I was working in the art world and graphic design, and I did enjoy it, but there was a form of like that occurred there, making it my job. And for me, hand lettering was that thing at first, where it's just me being mindful 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes a day of doing something that I just loved and different than what I was doing at work. And it was stretching me creatively, but it was also something I had some gifting in, so I was able to explore it, be frustrated with it, you know, and that part of that for me is, and sometimes now it might be, I might find a Pinterest tutorial or something I see that is a little different. It might be watercolor or painting or making jewelry or something. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, I would echo kind of what everyone else was saying, and just being mindful of time and those boundaries, and really making sure that you know, invest in time for yourself and schedule time for yourself to kind of do things outside of your passion, what you do with your day job and what you do with that passion. So yeah, just kind of setting boundaries and scheduling time for yourself to invest in yourself a little bit.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to the speakers for inspiring us and reminding us of a lot of things like we probably already knew. But what I find with Creative Mornings when we do this in person, when we do this virtually, is that it is such an amazing reminder every month to break out of whatever your norm is right now, create a new path, be okay diverging from what you think in your head is what you should be doing or what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm so appreciative of this community. I have a gratitude journal as well. And today I put that I am grateful for Creative Mornings. So thank you to the speakers. Thank you to everyone that came. I think you can probably follow all of them on social media.